I had a randomly assigned roommate in college who was a very sweet, religious girl. She kept to herself mostly, but she was always really kind and polite. This was the first year I didn't seem to have a mean roommate, so I was excited to get along with her. About 2 nights after we get moved in, I wake up to hear someone sobbing softly outside my bedroom door. It was a really weird sound. It's this kind of desperate, creaky sobbing, and I was so scared at first because it sounded like the sobs you hear in horror movies. It sounded more like The Witch, if you've played Left 4 Dead. I heard someone moving around the apartment and occasionally coming back to my door, scratching on it softly, so I finally summoned the courage to peek out of my bedroom. My roommate was just walking around the apartment crying. She was sleepwalking apparently because her eyes were closed, but when I opened the door, her head turned to look right at me. Then she slowly went to the kitchen table, picked up a pencil, and started to scrawl this weird symbol on her door. It looked like a circle with a triangle in it. I asked her if she was okay, and she just stood there, swaying and crying. I asked her if I can get her something, or whether she needed help, but still there was no response. So basically, I was just nope, and locked my door. The next morning, she was really scared and mad at me because this weird symbol had appeared on her door. She thought I had done it to prank her. She didn't believe me when I told her she was the one who did it, but eventually accepted my denials, and we dropped it. Several times throughout the year, I'd wake up in the middle of the night to see her in the kitchen. She'd be talking to herself. Every time, she would come to scratch softly on my door, and every morning, there would be another symbol on her door. She was still convinced it was me messing with her. I considered filming her, but honestly, I was really scared of opening the door because I watched too many scary movies about demons and those kinds of things. Then one time, we were in our separate dorm rooms when there was a huge bang from her bathroom. There was obviously no one else in the dorm, so we were both really freaked out, but we decided to investigate. We looked everywhere and nothing had fallen down. Also, there were no windows or other doors to the bathroom other than the one leading to our living room. We pulled back the shower curtain, and there was a huge arc of blood on the wall. She went pale, but we had no explanation for this. Later that night, while I was studying in total silence, she rushed into my room and demanded to know what I had said. I asked her what she was talking about, and she said she was in the bathroom and heard me talking to her, like I was there outside the bathroom, whispering something through the door. Nope. I explained that I was just in my room for at least a few hours. After that, whenever she was gone for the weekend, I always heard weird noises coming from her side of the dorm suite in the middle of the night. She moved out at the end of the year, and that was that. There were no more noises at night, and no more weird symbols on the door, but I've always wondered what the hell that was all about. I went to boarding school for 6 years. This boarding school was in the middle of a one-stoplight town and on a hill 800 feet up. The school used to be an old monastery, which was hundreds of years old and huge with 4 stories. It also had a basement where there was a boiler room and long hallways. There were lots of spooky things happening there, although the admin didn't want us to tell these stories to other people. Maybe they were afraid that it would make them not want to go to the school due to it being haunted. I used to be in charge of cleaning the gymnasium at night. Every student had a job that they had to do either at night or in the morning to help take care of the school. It taught you some practical things and all. Anyway, I was there by myself that night getting ready to start sweeping the gym. It had 2 floors to it. The upstairs part was the weightlifting area, and you could see it fully from the bottom part of the gym where the basketball court was. As I stepped into the gym, one of the basketballs starts rolling a bit. I look around to see if any doors are open, and none are. I chalk it up to randomness, but I see that it is continuing to roll. As I watch it, it makes a full circle around the entire gym and stops right next to my feet. At this point, I'm a bit scared, but figured it was nothing. I heard a creaking coming from the 2nd floor and look up. There is a little girl there, just staring right at me. As soon as I made direct eye contact with her, she bolts to the stairs that would take her to me. While running, She let out a scream that I cannot describe. I was terrified and froze in place. Thankfully, she didn't come to me, but took a sharp left and bolted through the main doors of the gym. They didn't open. She just went right through them. I noped the hell out of there. In my secondary school, we have a story that there was once a pregnant science teacher who didn't take maternity leave. However, one day when she was teaching her students, she suffered a miscarriage in the science labs and sadly passed away. They said it happened a long time ago, but our teachers wouldn't say what was her name and other details. Maybe they didn't want us telling this to others so as not to scare them from enrolling. Anyway, the science department was allowed to keep the miscarried fetus for some reason. The story says that every time the anniversary of the teacher's death comes up, all the lab techs and science teachers will leave school early. At 10 p.m., a horrid screaming will begin. It's so loud and terrible that some people who heard it never dared to step foot in the science labs ever again. I never believed that, but I felt uneasy whenever I had classes at that biology lab. Maybe it's just psychological. Fast forward several years later, I am working now and happen to meet a former science teacher and some classmates from that school at a gathering. The topic was brought up, and our former teacher swore her story was true. One night when she was still teaching there, she stayed late at the lab to finish some work. She didn't know about the story of the pregnant teacher and that it was her death anniversary. She just locked the lab door and was about to leave when she heard some creaking and a weird noise. It was a voice, but it wasn't loud. It sounded like a child, but it was deep and echoey at the same time. Then she looked down and saw a red mass dragging itself on the corridor outside the science lab. My former teacher was terrified and frozen. She swears that it said, "Mommy." When she felt her legs again, she ran towards the exit in the opposite direction. Nothing was found on the scene, but her colleagues believed her, and she never stayed late in that building again. My school's library is open until around 2 in the morning, which is perfect for idiots like me who don't do their essays until the last minute. It's a pretty small building, and most of the books are in the basement area called the stacks. Just to give you a quick layout, there's the big main stairs that go down to the stacks, a vending machine room, and the long hallway with 4 entrances into the stacks. The stacks are 2 really big rooms on opposite sides of the hallway with a huge amount of bookshelves and study desks lining the walls. I was there around 11 p.m. a few years ago. It was a pretty research-intensive essay, so I was down in the stacks working in one of the study desks. I worked there so I didn't have to keep going upstairs and downstairs again. I had been there for maybe 2 hours, and everyone except for a boy working a few desks down from me had left already. I was pretty zoned out by this point. The paper was for an 8 a.m. class, so I didn't have much time until it was due. I was sort of panicking too, so it really pissed me off when I heard someone flipping through book pages really fast and loud. The pages were doing that loud whirring noise at the other end of the room. I ignored it for a while, thinking they'd go away eventually, but they just kept doing it. After about 5 minutes, I got sick of it and started to walk over to tell them to knock it off. I get about 3 steps across the room, and it just stopped. I sat back down, and it was quiet again for like 10 more minutes before the flipping pages noise started again. This time, it was loads louder, like they grabbed a huge book and decided to be more annoying. The boy started to get pissed off too, and he stood up and started walking through the bookshelves trying to find them. It keeps going, so I got up too and started looking around with him. It got really loud, and it was pretty obvious where it was coming from by that point, so we started walking towards it. He was on one side of the shelves, and I was on the other. We walked all the way down the shelves, but no one was there. We hadn't seen anyone come in the stacks, and we were on the side of the room with the entrances. There's no way anyone could have come in without us seeing them. The noise stopped again, and we both just sort of slowly walked back to our seats. I assumed it was just a fan or something in the other room, and I really needed to get my essay done. We sat down, and immediately the noise started again. It sounded like it was coming from right next to the guy's chair. Looking terrified, he shoved his stuff in his bag, looked at me and said, "Nope, Can't take this anymore." He took off, and I was out of there maybe 5 seconds behind him. I still won't go back in the stacks at night, even when there's other people down there. No essay's worth getting murdered by a weird book ghost. Your support means a lot to me. Please drop a like and subscribe to Eerie Echoes for more horror stories. As always, thank you for watching.